Hello, everybody.
Greetings, gang. So glad to see some of you back from last week since this was your topic. Here we are for transaction coordination. Of course, we got Ellen and Liz. Of course, you guys are here to talk transaction coordination. So this is our hour. We get to do whatever we want with it, make it whatever we want it to be. So let's kick it off. Zach, any questions for the group to kick off our transaction coordination session?
Yeah, specifically, what around that are you finding challenging in your business? And you can either speak up in the group or put it in the chat. But where do we want to start and begin?
I can put one out there. So I know from my transaction coordinator, I hear sometimes frustration from her in regards to like only getting parts of the information from the Rainmaker and then not kind of getting all the details. I guess like this is for the starting process of a listing. And I know I've heard like people doing things where they do like Google Forms where it's like you need everything in here to submit for the listing to kind of get started with their transaction. So I guess my question is like, if people have had success with that, or do they kind of just take what the Rainmaker throws at them and, you know, piece the listing together? If that makes sense.
Yeah, Phil is echoing your thoughts there in the chat box, like handoff point between agents and TC.
And then the communication that's built within that. And what does that look like? I heard too, right? What else?
I mean, to piggyback off of that, I could say I have the same thing with a direct under contract. So for a buyer, you know, instead of working with the Rainmaker for a listing or with that listing agent for a listing, I know, for example, I won't get a transaction moving forward. They can blame me all day long. It's fine. I'm not going to get a transaction moving forward until the agent has followed my rules and gotten me everything that I need in order to move forward so that I don't spend my wheels and waste my time grabbing and piecing and searching and finding for everything I need when they actually have it and can give it to me. I might sound a little bitter because it's one of those days.
But Ellen, we have cracked down on that.
Oh, no, we're good.
Yeah,
Mostly,
we've cracked down on that. They send us emails, you know, in preparation. It comes first come, first serve. So there's been a hurdle to get there, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's
my other half talking.
Yeah.
So in regards to what Ellen said, like our buyers, whenever they get a deal under contract, they have to send our TC an email, and the email has like a template and it has name of buyer, MLS number, address, commission split, like kind of like all the details that the TC needs to get it started. And then she can put it in like CTE and start like has to have a checklist. And so that checklist doesn't get started till she gets that email from the buyer's agents. I'm curious though,
exactly
like
right. Give the same thing.
Yeah, I'd be curious though, like would a Google Forms be like, should I be shifting to that? Like, would that be easier to organize? Like click, like when they have like, then they get under contract, they just click the link, everything gets filled in and it gets submitted that way. Like instead of just an email. I don't know, that's like what I'm debating.
That's a good idea. I know that I personally want every single thing possible in my email for search purposes. And if I don't see it in my email, it's like in one ear and out the other. So I require that email. We have a same checklist. They have to provide it in that email, all the information I need. Mine is just a matter of getting that email.
I'm hearing, I think, two discussion points for us, which are both great. One is like efficiencies around the handoff. So let's discuss that. And then the second one, I think I'm hearing Jessica say, because she made the division, is, you know, okay, so your agents are doing one thing, but your Rainmaker is doing something else. So let's start with efficiencies in the system, and then we'll move into how to systematize your Rainmaker when maybe they're the rogue maverick out to the side. So efficiencies in the handoff. Let's go. Who's got some other ideas or who has experimented with some things for making that as efficient as possible?
So we use JotForm for it, and we also link JotForm with a bunch of other forms via Zapier. So that way I cannot stand double entry and having to like move information around a bunch of different ways in different places. So we have all agents submit one of 5 or 6 Jot forms, depending on buy, sell, listing agreement, whatever it is. And then that information will automatically populate into a Google Excel sheet. It starts various processes in Trello for some of them. So it's working in more than one way.
What else? Somebody doing something different?
We actually do have a really good system in place. And I honestly do believe, I just think it's a general, when I get on TC forums and whatnot, I feel like handoff and systems is what TCs talk about. So I feel like when we, like, first, because I brought up a buyer, I'll just follow up with that. When we have a buyer go under contract, we have a information that TC needs to know form that our buyer agent has to fill out. And it's everything from that buyer's disc profile to lender, what have you discussed, topics of conversation that have been had that I might need to know about it in advance. It just covers everything. And then they've got to have the buyer rep, the completed contract, and then that form filled out. And that's it. And that's what would set me in motion to set everything off and fill in all of our Google spreadsheets with this updated information and to get all the checklists started. So I do think that having a real system in place for when your TC is expected to start work is needed. An agent could text me and say, hey, I have something under contract. It's this address. Great. Until I have that contract or that email, I'm not starting on it. So, I think some people work that way, and having strict rules and boundaries and following those, staying in your lane, all those phrases is the only way to make the handoff of contract work. And I brought it up because I have some agents that are great at it, some that aren't.
So what have you done?
It's just training. It's us training the agent to do what they're supposed to do so I can do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So what have you done so far for agents who have not? You mentioned training. What does that look like?
Well, it's a matter of, hey, a quick text, just a reminder, I know you said this is under contract, but I will not get started on this file until you send me said email with these items included. I'll confirm receipt, and that my wheels are in motion then. That's all. It's very simple. Just have to do it.
One of the things that we do on our team is every week in our team meeting, we show how many under contracts people have done, and they only count if they have submitted the form. So all the time I'll have agents be like, hey, I have more under contract than this. Nope, they don't exist in my world. They don't exist anywhere else.
100% agree.
What else do we have with this? What are some best practices that are working really well for your team?
Something that we've done that everyone in our market seems to start stealing from us, so others might like it, but I was literally trained to do it 8 years ago, so I don't know different than that. We send out an email called the new file email, and it has everyone's contact info except for the buyers and the sellers, because not everyone needs that, but every title company, every agent, lender, all of it, purchase price, deadlines, everything. It's everyone involved in the transaction. A lot of people will do a PDF and stuff, but we send out an email with that, and the contract is attached to that. And when we send it out, that's kind of all of our vendors and everyone's trigger So it's the same kind of idea. If we were to get that, we start going once the form's filled out. But when our lender gets that, our title company gets that, whatever, they know they should go and run. And it kind of just empowers everyone with the right information. So everyone's starting on the same page.
I can add to that too. We do something similar. So when the buyer deal goes under contract, and then the TC gets the email, her first step is she sends an email to the buyers and the lender, and it's like an email template, and it's like, congratulations on your executed contract. And it has the executed contract attached. And then it has like, this is the mortgage date, this is the closing date, this is the inspection deadline, and like everything's laid out in there. And then it's, here's a list of inspection companies, here's a list of attorneys, and like that's the first step that our TC does. And then it's, please, CC me on every email, so that like kind of starts it off, and everything is like listed there. And a lot of buyers like that because it's just like everything is right there in front of them, the dates, the deadlines. The lender likes it because they get the contract, the deadlines, like, so that's one of our templates there.
Yeah, I find that to be the most helpful thing I might do in the whole thing is, receive the contract, and within the first, and I do require 24 hours from all of my agents to get things going, but within that 24 hours to get that exact template with all the deadlines, all the dates to all parties involved, so that from the get-go, and then receive confirmation of receipt, so that that when someone says, oh, well, I didn't know about this or that, they did. I think also, and this is not even a part of a system or part of a process, but having good communication and a good relationship between your team members. If there's folks that perhaps don't connect well, or there's for some reason any sort of, tension or something, that always seems to create, or I've found, it creates some sort of hiccup inevitably somewhere along the way, which is utterly subconscious. But when you have a well working and functioning team, you probably also have a team that completely communicates well and understands each other well. And we're not reading minds, but we're working together well. So I think if people are having issues in the handoff or in the startup of listings or under contracts, then there might be something outside of systems and plans that need to be addressed, and that could just be a good working dynamic.
In that same vein, I have a question. How are people, especially in this day and age, with being digital and like hiring people that we just hired a TC that has probably met the team once. So how are people getting their TCs or admin incorporated with the rest of the team, knowing that their personality type might not necessarily be the type that goes and joins the happy hours or goes to the client events, that kind of thing?
Are y'all getting face-to-face time even via Zoom?
Not with our, with our twice a week with our admin.
Okay, I find that to be something. I'm so sorry. Someone else has something to say. I'm feeling chatty, but I find that to be something we do that works really well. Is every single morning our entire team gets on Zoom, and we have a team member in the Philippines, but I feel like I know her and I love her, So I feel like it's something that when you do that 5 days a week throughout the year, you're gonna get to know a little bit about that person, and a connection will form with or without getting to go to happy hour. So I think even if it's Zoom FaceTime, that should be something that maybe is addressed that way.
Haley, what's the underlying concern? Like, why the question?
With our admin not being back in the office and our agents are in the office, I've definitely noticed a little bit more of an us versus them mentality of like, our agents are putting on more work with them because we're doing more business now. They're feeling stressed, but they're not also getting that personal connection outside of business that we used to get by being in the office more frequently together.
Powerful question. Us versus them, a deadly cancer. So how do we prevent the us versus them mentality just in general? Let's take it to that.
I would recommend if business is getting exponentially busier, that you need to just reset expectations for everybody and maybe have that conversation again about roles and responsibilities and get everybody on the same page so that they all feel like they have a buy-in as to, you know, how they're controlling that situation.
When do you think we get to us versus them? What points in our business lend themselves to an us versus them mentality?
I would say when roles are not communicated clearly. If they feel like they're doing what they're tasked to do and the agents are thinking that they're not doing, you know, if somebody feels like they're dropping the ball, I feel like it's probably 90% of the time a miscommunication somewhere.
So not like very maybe unclear guidelines between the handoff, who is doing what part of the transaction. What else creates that, can create kind of the breeding ground for us versus them? It's a great one, Shannon.
I think part of the problem on our team that we see is everyone is judging others' expectations, like what they should be doing, based off of our intentions for them. Like, if I were an agent, I would prospect 3 hours every single day, and I would set at least one appointment that I would 100% convert because I'm amazing and my team's amazing, and I would get 4 people under contract every week. Like, it would be easy. And whenever I think like that, I get mad at the agents. And I know that the agents are thinking similar things like us, like, oh, a TC, like, what does she even do? Like, I only have 2 under contract. How busy can she be? And so I think it's the mentality of we're judging others, not knowing what they're really actually going through, where the agents have real life problems. The agents have struggles. They're trying to find houses with 0 inventory, and that's their issue. We're trying to keep everyone happy and have 1,000 files on our plate. And just when we start to judge others, what we think that we would do in their scenario, rather than just trying to help it out, I feel like we get very at odds.
It's a great example. Like, really human nature. It's real. It's real, Cameron. Thanks for being real. And to give us the context, like, just as an example, how many do you guys have under transaction at any given time on average?
I think we're in the 90s right now, 90 under contract.
You know,
We've gone down
90 to 100. Yeah. So like, that's a real issue, right? Like, what's the TC do anyway? Like, my part of that, you know, like, it's this misunderstanding between like who's controlling what and how much work they actually have to do when your team scales. It's a huge one.
Is that 1 or 2 TCs on handling 90?
We just actually hired our second. It's 2, but he only does like a subset, like our new construction sellers, like for our builders. So I think she has 60 or 70 on her plate right now.
But it has been one for a long time.
Yeah, he's like 3 months old. He used to be on our team, so he jumped right in, didn't really have to train him on very much. But yeah, it was her doing 100 files consistently for the last year.
What else creates a breeding ground for us versus them? Because this is, I mean, Zach, do you see this as much as I do, where it starts to be one leaning, you know, like we start to just creep in this cancer and it can go south fast?
Yeah, we see it where it all boils down to, I think, the communication, and are we being reactive as opposed to proactive, right? And what do those proactive meetings look like? So at the beginning of this call, we talked about a Google form, right? Which is proactive, so that it should be filled out and sent. So that's one way to go through that. Are we having updates? What do our updates look like throughout the week to the agent, who's also our client, and the actual client that we're going through? And I think right there, when just that mindset shift, right? Realizing that that agent is a client and looking at their needs and what they need is a shift for some of us that we don't have. So what do
Jumping
we-
on to, sorry, we do updates 3 times a week, not every day, but we send out an update email to all of our lenders and title companies and all of that on Tuesdays. Where are we in the process? On Wednesday, we update the Rainmaker so that on Thursday and Friday, they can update all of the clients. And it seems to be a really like smooth sailing process. And they feel like they're in the know and also in control of the situation because they're on top of things for their sellers and buyers. But we also continue to keep that line of communication open.
Would it be okay if I screen share something with you guys for a second on this topic? 2 of you nodded yes, so I'm gonna just take that as permission. So let's, oh shoot, Zach, you gotta give me permission.
Yep.
I need Zach to nod yes. For a second.
Says one participant can share at a time. It looks like you can. I don't know. Oh, here we go. All right.
All right. Okay, so I love this as a sort of model for what we're talking about. And when we think about especially our operations teams, and if we use, this is from a book called Predictable Success, but if we think about this as like our continuum on our team, you know, we have our team here going along, you know, early struggle, fun. This is when you first have a new idea, then you're like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. I'm gonna think about this new idea. But when you think about our actual transaction process, once we get into it, we hit something, this rough patch called whitewater. And whitewater is where really sales in the situation we're talking about now, sales is overvalued comparatively to systems. So we are really preferencing the sales or the creative piece versus the systematization of it. And that creates chaos, right? That's why it's called whitewater. And when you run your operations team in chaos, you can start to get into that kind of a cancerous, like, well, God, like we're working really hard and they don't have to do anything, or, you know, this is like an us versus them because it's unbalanced. The sales team's preference, the ops team is in constant chaos. Predictable success is right here in the middle, and we're going to come back to that. But on the other side, you've got more stuff here, more chaos here, and that's called the treadmill. And that's actually where systems are prioritized over sales. So you have the reverse, right? The sales side starts to think like, they're not even out selling. Like this is, they don't know what I'm doing day in and day out to actually make this happen. It's where we're overvaluing the system comparatively to the sales. Predictable success is in the middle where they're equal. And as long as we hold them each equal, sales is equal to systems, then we get that predictable success without those negative feelings like Cameron was describing, right? Like what's she doing anyway? Or like, how come he can't set these 4 appointments? When we value them both equally, we like live in that sweet spot, right in the middle. But if we get out of balance, not only is it chaotic, but also we have a lot of human emotion that comes up with that, including this whole us versus them. Like I'm not doing their job for them. Like they're gonna have to go kick them out, like make them bring me the file, or I'm not giving her that file. She's not busy, she can go and get it. And that's where we start to see that start to creep into our teams. So with that in mind, how can we make sure our systems and our sales are equally valued on our teams so that they're in harmony and not in discord? In the transaction process, because this is transactions.
I think understanding what works for everyone's personality type, and I'm super new. I work for one agent, so take my opinions with a grain of salt. But I came in thinking I wanted this lead sheet filled out in an Excel file because it auto-populated into something that worked for me. And I was having a really hard time getting the lead sheet from my agent, from my Rainmaker. And so I had to shift my approach to get what I wanted in the end result still, but feed it to him in a way that worked for his personality type, for his schedule, for everything. So I think it's a matter of building a system around real people.
Beautifully said. Building a system for sales, right? Because that's what your system was designed for. And so you made it work for him. That's really nice.
Hey,
Nice.
Megan, I thought a lot about this chart lately because you shared it with me last week. And my hard part of this is I even heard a quote today. Someone said, chaos does not scale. And I thought, oh, yep, that's all systems. Systems scale. Systems are way better than everything else. But there needs to be that balance. And so I always try to find that. And my whole goal is to make everything as easy for everyone else as possible, right? Like our number tracking. We're not doing number tracking, but that's my easiest example. I have 4 questions for the agents to fill out every single night, and 2 of them are pre-filled in for them. They just have to make sure that they're right. And it's a Google form. Answer me 2 questions at 9 o'clock at night. It comes to your phone, like notifies you everything. And so like, I don't know, I always struggle. Like, I feel like my systems are there. The certain personalities don't jive with it. If there was just one, like it worked well when I just had the one, but now that there's the 15, it struggles with some of them.
So where is Cameron, Cameron's team on that bell curve? Is he in chaos or treadmill? Is he in whitewater or treadmill?
I would imagine that from my team's point of view, we're on a treadmill, but from my point of view, we're in whitewater. Not systematized enough. We need more, but they might think we have too much.
What's real? Coming soon to a one-on-one coaching call.
Yep.
I think the
coaching
challenge is that agents have that entrepreneurial mindset. They don't want to be managed. They don't want to be micromanaged. And so for me, the systems, the more simple they are, the more approachable they become for the agents, because they are not wanting to be managed per se. So I try to just make it as simple as possible. It sounds like a 4-question form should be very simple, especially if they're only answering 2 questions. So my advice would just be to go to those handful of agents that are having difficulty with that and ask them why, just kind of better understand how they like to manage their time and the process, and see if there's any way that you can tweak it for those handful. I wouldn't change everything to adapt to 3 or 4 people, but maybe there is something in that conversation with that handful of people that could maybe even better tweak the system as a whole.
That's a great idea, because everything has improvement. But then I need to remember that sales is equal to systems. So I don't treadmill us. But I like that idea.
Who created that system?
Me.
What conversation did we have when we created it?
Here's what I need to hopefully make the agent's jobs better. There was a gap, and we've talked a lot about the why behind it. Like, even bringing it back to TC, like our form is way too long. I hate how many questions I ask the agents when we have it under contract. But the reality is I need all of that information. Like, I need to know the other agent. Do they have an assistant? Do they not? Where did you even get this lead? Like, was it a Google lead? Should we focus more effort there. Like I need a lot of information with the under contract process. And so I hate how long it is, but I have to do it. And I think the agents see the why on that, but like the number tracking, they don't. And so start with the why. Megan said that for like 6 months straight. Got to do that with all of the systems.
So did you do that in this case, particularly?
No, I did it all by myself. It didn't work out well. All by myself, meaning me and the director of sales, what we wanted to see, the CEO, like the numbers we wanted. It was a group effort, but from the top down. And then we are working to get buy-on to bring it from the bottom up. And there's a few agents that get it and a few agents that don't. And it would probably be interesting to see why the few agents don't care. Why is it not important to them?
So the questionnaire, just for my understanding, is activity numbers?
Yeah,
more or
like
less.
how many conversations, how many appointments.
So I'm going to be willing to bet that the agents that are not responding are not wanting to answer because of lack of activity, perhaps.
Yeah. When I tell them if they don't answer, I assume that you did nothing.
Yeah.
Which probably doesn't help that whole dynamic of us versus them.
You know what's cool about this conversation though, guys, is that, you know, you have Jordan who's got one agent brand new, and you've got Cameron who's been in this business a long time and has just this incredibly huge team. And the issue is the same, right? Like their issues are literally identical. It's just on a different team with different human people. So that is, I don't know, as a coach, that's kind of been my experience across teams is the issues don't change. It's like the size of the team changes, but the issues don't actually change. When you can master figuring out how to create a system for, you know, whatever, for Jordan, it's numbers tracking, and Cameron, for numbers tracking that serves your agents, then that's the issue, whether you've got one agent or whether you've got 15 agents.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's the permission to have those tough conversations, right? And for majority of our teams, we can have those fierce conversations, but what do I mean by permission? So like in Cameron's example, right, not right or wrong, but a different perspective, as he mentioned, what if we would have started with coming to a meeting and going, look, here's the challenge I'm having. How do we make this a win-win? Because I have to have this information and I want to make it as simple as possible. Right? And creating something together and then asking, so do we have commitment around this to get it done? Because once we have the commitment and we built it together, now we have the opportunity to hold accountable because we had that conversation in front. What we see is because usually we're not that aggressive, but we'll build a system and then we'll explain the why we built the system. But that's not a commitment. That's an explanation of an action that's already done. Dressed up like it was a win-win.
I think I got lucky on the under contract system because when I built it, everyone was like, great, this is awesome. And they were okay with it because before they would like email me things and I would ask them 1,000 questions and then send things out and stuff wasn't right and we would have issues and I'd come back to them later. And then when I was like, here's this form that you fill out one thing and then never talk to me again, they're like, sweet, love it, let's go. And so I just happened on to a why that they would be okay with. If we would have built it together, it would have been the same. But if I were to ask agents to build a number tracking system with me, we would have come up with very different results. And that's my struggle now. Thanks for group coaching me, team here.
Power of Let's Chat. I love it. Thanks for bringing up like a coaching topic. That's, I mean, it takes a lot to be vulnerable.
And not just for you, right? That's all of us. I mean, I experienced that when I ran my team. 100%. Most of those systems were built by me with then an explanation afterwards of why we had to go that route, right? Which is backwards than the way you normally would have buy-in.
You know what I loved about your example?
Birthday, right? It's like skipping my wife's birthday and then explaining to her why I did that a day after. Not good, right? No different.
What I loved about your example though, Zach, is like so honoring to the other party, right? To the sales agents versus like maybe some of our traditional systems, because we're like, we'll just whip up this system and we'll explain it in team meeting. Because that's efficient, right? We know how to do it. We can have it done before our next meeting, then we'll tell them what it was. But your like little scenario you whipped up there was such a, it was honoring the sales side so much by saying, you know, okay, like I've got to have this information, but I know you might have something to say about that. So let's work on a solution together. It was really good.
Yeah, at least some bullet points, right? And I love the honoring, right? I would have said, I view it as anytime I get in the mode of telling, look how you can ask a question and come from contribution. Because if you're telling, more likely it's your side who wants something and you're not looking out for the benefit of the other.
Well, and that's, now I'm backpedaling and doing what Shannon said, like go to the ones that aren't doing it and figure out why. Like if I would have started with this, I would have saved headaches over the last year.
And once you figure that out, let us know. Because I have been struggling with this. And even when we go to the agents, they're like, oh, I forget, I don't have time.
I mean, our team struggles with this as well, but it goes back to, you know, the 1 or 2 agents that are really bad at reporting numbers at the end of every day. They will send at the end of every week. And of course, their numbers at the end of every week look good. But that's what our 1 or 2 really good agents are. That's what their numbers are daily. So for appointment, under contract, contacts, not so much. But yeah, I love going to them, asking why, and then are you going to commit?
What's a third question we can throw in there? And Hannah, that can go back to you, or it could be someone else. So we said why, and what are you going to commit to? What's a third question we could ask?
How, you know, like how would you prefer it? I don't know. I don't want to create different systems and make the other people that are doing so well at it, make them change when it works for the majority of everybody else other than 1 or 2 people.
I could get on board with that. I don't think I would want to do that either. So what's a third question we could ask?
Because I think that no matter what, we have another way to submit numbers. In the Google form, we do Slack as a Slack channel. They're still not going to report numbers if it's not looking good. No. So yeah, it probably goes back to another question.
We often ask, what support do you need from us to make it happen?
There you have it. Right? What can we do to support you? What training can we offer that would benefit you? And that question is right from the consultative interview from the MREA. Right? What was the goal? How did you do? How do you feel about it? What are we going to do? And what do you need from us to help support you so you understand it? Right? And it may be that hard conversation of someone may be like, well, I just don't want to do it. I want to submit it weekly. Or I don't want to give the onboarding TC paperwork, right? Like, I think it's a waste of time. But at least now we have clarity around the conversation we should be having, as opposed to us making up a story that doesn't exist.
We've got 17 minutes left. This is your call. What topics around the transaction would you like to be discussing next?
This might be super basic. But boundaries. What is it that your transaction coordinator, what does your transaction coordinator not do? I think I'm sure everybody's boundaries are different in what their transaction coordinator does. But for those of you that are saying, you know, you've got 100 things pending at the moment, that the workload that your transaction coordinator does might look different than one that has 50 things pending, or where do you draw a line on what your agent does and what your transaction coordinator does? Asking for a friend.
My thought on this is that the agent should just do 5 things ever. Let's see if I can name them. Oh no. Script practice, lead generate, lead follow-up, go on appointments, and negotiate. And so if it's one of those, then I'm okay giving that back. And so usually the under contract process, to me, that's just the negotiate part.
Tell me more about that, the negotiate part.
So after an inspection, if there's any problems that you get to negotiate, not that that happens right now, but that would be a point where the transaction coordinator would kind of bring that ball back in. This is where we always have struggle though, because if the agent gets too involved, then the agent's running everything from now. And so
yeah, that's where it gets a little scary. So I just want to see if anyone has that laid out well.
The best that we ever have with our agents is when they feel like they're like the coach and the TC is the quarterback, right? And so we're like, oh, we have a problem, timeout, let's go talk. The quarterback is going to go execute everything. The TC does it all, but the coach actually makes the game plan with the quarterback. So we let like the agent kind of do the negotiating, but then the TC jumps right back in to execute everything. And that the agents that allow us to do that seem to have the best time. The agents that say, oh, let me go negotiate, and all of a sudden 3 days later we hear that there's a new addendum and it's been sent to the title company and the lender and everyone else, like we've lost it at that point. And so some of it's agent by agent, but if we think of it like that, then that's kind of our boundaries a little bit. Even that gets fuzzy because if it happens at 6 o'clock, who's dealing with that? If we need a negotiation late at night, or if everything's coming to the TC on the weekend and the agent doesn't even know, like who takes over. So I would like to hear more, but that's kind of our loose boundaries.
I think that sounds exactly, to say exactly right, I don't know if everybody's is exactly right, but that sounds exactly right on a good game plan and how things should be. But I think also acknowledging that sometimes it just gets a little fuzzy just because that's going to happen is also something just to bear in mind. It just will happen. But I just wanted to hear kind of where, primarily in the negotiations, and what does your agent do? What does your TC do to maintain certain numbers and keep everything working and keep everyone from drowning and the getting fuzzy too often portions.
I've often thought this because I remember.
Who else? Guys, share your agent TC handoff during negotiations. How do you guys handle that?
I feel like we do it very similar to what Cameron does. Our TC, or when I was the TC, like even though I'm licensed, I would not negotiate. Like I've never been in the property. I didn't see what the inspector pointed out, so I don't know what happened with the inspection to negotiate it. So the agent is responsible for that. I'll put together the addendum where they can do it. However, then like I'll be the one that makes sure that the addendum actually gets signed, that it gets over to the other side. So outside of the actually coming up with the items that we're going to ask and negotiating it with the other side, like then for us, the administrative staff handles everything else. And same thing, like if I hear from a lender that the appraisal came in low, like hand it back off to the agent, be like, you need to go negotiate this with, you know, the co-broke and the seller.
Thanks for bringing up the appraisal part. That's good too. That's also negotiations.
So, and then the other thing, I mean, I don't know what you guys do. However, we have like walkthroughs before closing 3 days before, and the agents are responsible for that. They're actually responsible for scheduling it too. I refuse to get in the middle of dealing with their schedule and the buyer's schedule and the seller's schedule. I feel like it's just easier for them to do that. So they're responsible for going on the walkthrough. And I feel like that's like, it's actually lead gen time. Like they get more face-to-face time with the client. Client's happy. It's time to ask for a referral. So.
I think those two answers cleared it up. Thanks.
Yeah, this
11 minutes left. What question are you just dying to get an answer to?
I have another one. What are your TCs doing post settlement in regards to that client? Are they doing any type of follow-up after the transaction closes? And what does that look like?
We send out an email, basically just congratulating them on their closing, and ask for, like, for buyers, obviously we have their updated mailing information, but for sellers, you know, we have a quick, like, if we have it or we think we know it, we have it all typed in an email just saying, can you confirm all of your contact information? And then we always ask for a Google review, unless we already know that the transaction was horrible, and then we don't ask for the review.
Same.
And this isn't really what the transaction coordinator does, but we obviously gift all of our clients, and we do gifts 3 times during the transaction to create more buy-in and maintain those relationships long term. Our business is completely based on referrals. So we don't do a whole lot of lead gen at all. The business typically is all from referrals. And part of that is, I think, just that continued experience that they're getting throughout the process.
Shannon, you just said one of my favorite words. Whose TCs are generating referrals during the transaction? Cameron's got a half hand. I'll allow that half hand, I know. Only Cameron? No one's TCs? This is like one of their main jobs? Ellen, yeah, you're working on that. Yes, you are, I see.
Not always successful, but I make the right questions.
Yeah.
I get a kickback anytime I get a referral. So I do that on a daily basis if I can.
Anybody getting 25% or more referrals during the transaction, meaning 25% of your transactions equal a referral, 25% or higher. Anyone? No, this is your homework. We only have 8 minutes left, but your homework is to create a plan for your transaction department to be getting 100% referrals during the transaction. But once you hit 100, then I want you to do it for 200%. Yes, it's possible. Your TC can do that.
Do you ever find it gets a little dicey when it's an agent sphere that you're asking, or are you just talking about team leads?
I have questions. What would be dicey about the agent sphere?
So if we've had it that people get like almost offended that, well, why are you taking that over? Like, I'm asking that question and you're getting the referral. Like, is that going to impact my commission? Because technically, I guess I know it's his sphere, but it's the team kind of got that lead. So there's like confusion when it comes to that type of thing.
Iron that out in your agent agreements, who gets paid for what. And then
like we have that, Hannah, don't we? Like if I ask one of Samantha's sphere, like, hey, it was such a pleasure working with you guys. If you know anybody, they always have somebody. I think we've got that laid out. Do you know what we do? I don't.
Yeah, we kind of do it now by whoever sets the actual appointment gets, like if the ISA sets the appointment, then they get that referral. If the team sets the appointment for that person, that referral, then the team gets it. But if the agent sets the appointment from the referral, then it gets paid out that way. So whoever sets the appointment, I think I heard it probably from one of y'all on here, whoever sets the appointment gets, that's where the commission structure comes from. It follows whoever sets the appointment by that structure.
anything's possible. But be clear so that there is no such thing as dicey, because when we're clear, then it's okay. I would say, what a great value proposition. So if you've got agents on your team now who get about let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, they get a 10% referral rate from their own sphere. But you have a transaction department that generates a 100%, 200% referral during the transaction. There is not an agent who would not happily join your team with a value proposition like that. What if you could get 200% referral rate from their client base, however they're paid, whether that means they don't get the full amount or not? I can guarantee you they're not getting it now. 200%, I mean. So either way, they're making money. Just make sure you know how to sell your value and who gets paid what.
And that's where, giving up just like an ISA, 20% of the commission is worth an appointment set, ready. You haven't had to do any follow-up. Or all of our agents, they're like, set appointments, we'll take them. And then they're nurturing their own. So they're in for it and they love that.
Hopefully you're not giving the ISA 20%, but yes, the appointment's worth 20%. Maybe you keep 10, you give the ISA 10. Don't be giving that 20 away, Hannah. I've seen that.
Oh yeah, it's that.
Okay. Okay, guys, 5 minutes left. What are we talking about next week? You're the ones that are here, so you get to set the agenda.
Well, one thing I talked to my agents about, I don't know who else here might be transaction coordinators, but on a regular, whether it's a quarterly touch or just regular basis when I think it's needed, like I said, trying to keep communication lines open with the agent is what helps our workflow better. And so it's just a constant touch base of what would you like to see me do differently? What can I do better for you? How can I help you more? Are we good? A basic conversation like that. And I am genuinely interested all the time in what I could do better, where TCs could improve, what is it that the agent really needs versus what we've already got set up in our systems. Where does an agent see they want the system changed? Having those conversations and trying to implement those. Are y'all doing that?
Did you play Sam there?
Ooh, my husband's also on a Zoom, sorry.
Thoughts from the group?
We actually have done something similar to that. We've only done it once. But we did like an all team, give feedback, and everyone wrote down the feedback and gave it to the Rainmaker and some of the leadership. And there was some great suggestions, some concerns that we were like, oh boy, we were not even seeing this come at all. And it allowed for a very safe and open conversation about any of the concerns. And because it was received so well, we are now doing it at least once a quarter to make sure that, we are still on the same page as them, they are on the same page as us. And if there are any concerns, it's allowing that safe environment to have those conversations.
Awesome feedback, Chrisanne. Thank you. What is the thing we should be discussing next week that will guarantee your business moves forward from the conversation?
I have one, and it's obviously time management. Everyone should be time blocking their calendar or whatever it is that works for you. But also, I have a running to-do list. And at the end of it, I have to have all my check marks and cross offs and things like that. So when agents text all day long and you've got a number of agents, what are you doing to ensure that you don't skip something? Or again, I don't know if y'all are transaction coordinators or agents. How do y'all work getting information to your transaction coordinator as you're driving down the road and something pops in your mind and you don't want the TC to forget it? Do you send it via email and acknowledge, hey, that TC is definitely working on something else. They'll get to it when they can. What is it? I've got
my phone's blown up the whole time we're on this Zoom. And I'm just over here jotting down my notes so I can get to it, when we get off. But I also follow that text up with an email with saying like, please send that to me in an email. Because again, if it's not in my email, it's in one ear and out the other. So what is it that y'all do to ensure that just day-to-day stuff that pops up in your work gets done?
So I'm hearing two potential topics. Let's take a quick vote because we're out of time. One is time, like calendar management, time management. How do we make sure we get through what we need to get through regardless of your role? And the other one is communication systems on the team. So if you would like next week to do communication systems on the team, raise your hand. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thanks, Bill. 6. And if you would like to do, because there's more than 12 people on the call, so I don't know who's not going to raise their hand. But if you would like to do time blocking, time management, raise your hand.
I feel like those can go like hand in hand
Sorry,
together.
Cameron. Sorry, Cameron. Yeah, well, we'll make the
I was
theme
almost not going to
communication.
vote.
We'll make the theme communication. If time management gets in there, of course, we're always open for anything. So communication Janet, will be our topic next Thursday. See you guys then.
Talk to everyone then.